Okay, hi everybody. Let's wait for you to enter the room, and just to welcome you. So you can use the chat to comment and discuss the conference. And if you have questions for speakers, you can use the Q&A button. Go there, have a check. You can ask question, comment it, vote for the best questions. It's going to be easier for Bertrand and Bob to answer you. So now it's time to welcome our speakers for this last conference of this Fidelio event. And welcome, guys. And I wish you a nice conference.
Thank you, Benoit. So, welcome to our presentation on wearable and voice speaking technology. So the objective is to explain you how you can significantly increase your warehouse productivity. So after a quick remarks about key factors impacting the supply chain and the distribution centers, Bob will dive in details on how that technology can really be integrated in your solution, in your warehouse, and can help you realize some quick ROI, or significant ROI, I should say.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
So that's us, Bertrand and Bob. And Bob is the brain. I'm just the facilitator. And Bob, in one sentence, if you had to explain who you are.
Well, yes, Bob Bova, and I am with AccuSpeech Mobile. We provide voice automation on devices in the warehouse, inside the four walls, outside the four walls. And it's a voice automation technology that does not need middleware or back-end integration server. We voice enable all kinds of warehouse applications and have a lot of success automating those applications so people are more productive and more accurate with their data collection.
Perfect. For barcoding, our mission is very simple. It's to help you improving your supply chain efficiency. So any technology that we can implement in your supply chain to improve efficiency. And we are, North American based with offices in the US, head offices in Baltimore, and we're across Canada. So a few remarks on the supply chain situation. If you remember, could be a long time with everything that happened, but in 2019, 2020, the trend was to go omni-channel, to run lean, and we were slowly, transforming the supply chain to achieve that omni-channel strategy. And running lean meant, low stock, and that was the trend. And March 2020 arrived, COVID-19 hit, and it really transformed the supply chain, the global demand, and it pretty much put the supply chain and still in shambles, and forced everybody to reassess their requirements and to accelerate the digital transformation. So that's an example of event. You had COVID-19. You had another event, if you remember, that was that container that blocked the Suez Canal for I think 2 weeks, really blocking the supply chain one more time. And I didn't want to put Ukraine war picture, but the situation in Europe is another event, really creating some other issues. Related to the food processing industry, there is also an important compliance mandate. The FDA and the CFIA are aligned to have the same compliance for the food industry. So it means that there will be more traceability requirements to be done. And it means that there is more information to be gathered, collected, and transmitted to reach that farm to fork concept in 2025. So that's an interesting slide, mentioning some of the key trends also that will impact or are impacting some of the operation indices or the challenges that you can face. Labor demand. There are studies, and labor demand for distribution centers are going to be tremendous, meaning that already we have shortage of labor. It means that distribution centers, warehouses need to be as much efficient with at least the same amount of labor or even less. So that's really the priority for the CFO to have more analytics, more information to improve that distribution. E-commerce, it's also booming, and what's happening is you have a change in the processes in the warehouse. So you have more and more piece picking fulfillment compared to pallet fulfillment, and piece picking fulfillment will require another technology than the traditional data collection technology. Another key interesting stat is that by 2025, 75% of the workforce will be millennials. So I don't know if we have millennials with us on the call. I don't see you, but we have that trend going, and it can be a very good opportunity to with that trend with millennials. They are different from my generation, Bob generation, and what we see is an opportunity because that demography will want some recent technology. And they want instant feedback. They want to be able to work with really edge technology, and voice picking is part of the new tools that can satisfy them. So if you look at warehouse automation, it's a quick layout of where your warehouse readiness can be. So if you look at the bottom left, it's the basic warehouse automation where you could be completely here it could be completely manual, no technology. And there is a stat that I have a hard time believing it, but it seems like at least 60% of the warehouse have no technology into it. So not even a barcode scanner, a simple barcode to scan to do automated capture. They are still manual. The first level is barcode and key entry. So you have a picker, an employee using a handheld barcode and doing that type of data entry. And you can start getting more sophisticated into your warehouse readiness. And wearable and voice are pretty much the next logical step to improve your efficiency. And as I mentioned in the past slides, there is more and more piece picking compared to pallet picking in some operations, and that's where it's going to make lots of sense. After that, you can always complement with some brand new technology to get more information, more business intelligence with sensors, with robots and automation. That's where you're going to be on the far right. But usually distribution center will see a mix of the different technology to address the right business processes. So Bob,
so Bertrand,
you want to take over?
Sure. It's interesting that you mentioned how so many companies still have paper, right? And it's amazing that, well, I shouldn't say it's amazing, but it is very common for us to speak to people and they ask about voice, and we ask them, okay, so how are you collecting data now, or how are you picking now? And they said, well, we go to the printer and we pick up our pick ticket and we pick. And that happens more often than you would think. And I think that's an opportunity for folks to go in and really add value, because they're going to need a lot. They're going to need all types of warehouse services and applications and networks, and it's just it's a real opportunity. So all right, let me share my screen. Does that look right? Anyone see my screen?
It does.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. So the big piece of data collection, especially when you're going to talk about utilizing different types of barcode scanners or even tablets, anything really to collect barcode scanning. You're saving time because you're scanning a barcode instead of speaking to something or checking something off a list. That's actually very, very significant. Also, you're not putting stuff down, you're not reading stuff. Everything that you're doing is helping, but then all of a sudden you get into the next level where all of a sudden you are putting things down and you are looking at the screen, and you are, especially when you get more comfortable with the application. So the idea is, how do we make that more compelling? And you make it more compelling by voice automating the opportunity of the application. And voice automation is not necessarily just for picking anymore either. We voice enable multiple applications in the warehouse environment: picking, receiving, cycle count, shipping, and these applications can all be supported with a single device-based voice license, which is very, very cost effective, especially if you're looking at ROI. So for instance, the woman on the left, she doesn't have to put anything down. She can continue to speak and do her work. And the woman on the right, she also can just continue to do what she needs to do without having to look at her screen all the time. But again, the nice thing about device-based voice is that it is an augmentative implementation, not necessarily a complete replacement. So you can still have scanning and screen and anything else that those devices can support. Now, voice automation, the benefits of voice have been around for a long time, and most of what I would consider the legacy voice vendors like Vocalect and Lucas and Voxware are all server-based, and they have been touting the same benefits that are in front of you right now. Increased productivity, reduced errors. Again, none of that's changed. However, with the advent of device-based voice, the ability to deploy within 4 to 5 weeks, the ability to deploy 1 or 2 devices at a time instead of an entire warehouse at a time, there's a lot more flexibility that really leads to comfort on the customer's level. So instead of completely changing their behavior and completely changing the application and moving everybody over all at once, this huge turning the battleship in the bathtub type of mentality, now you can actually test 1 device at a time, 2 devices at a time. And that makes a big, big difference. So being able to do that makes people feel a lot more comfortable. It significantly reduces the risk. The ability to actually automate the application by using voice, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in terms of how we can streamline different workflow processes. Pardon me. And we pride ourselves on a hard and fast return on investment. We have a very sophisticated calculator that we take a look at how the processes work currently, and we also fill in all different types of, if there's new hardware, new software, whatever the potential customer may need. So
hey Bob, I just want to interrupt you for a quick sec.
Sure.
We have a question from the audience, and they are asking
love questions from the audience.
Excellent. So they're asking, how long does it take to ramp up a brand new employee using that technology you just described there?
That's a tremendous question. That person must work for me. It can take less than a day. So once you voice automate an implementation, you can hand them a headset, and if the process is automated, there's only a few things that they actually need to do. The whole idea is to get them up to rate as quickly as possible. There is no voice training like with legacy server-based implementations. It's all user independent. And we can also slow it down. We can make it speak things slower. You can say help at any time. You can say, what can I say here? So that capability is also just innate with a device-based type of AccuSpeech voice solution. So that the whole idea is to get folks really up and going, within a day or two at the most. And how we deploy the solution also really leans heavily on the more seasoned workers in the warehouse, so that we continue in the first week of user acceptance testing to really hone the process with voice and automate everything that we can. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Actually, we'll talk a little bit about it now. I hope that answers your question. The whole point is for us to be able to say, okay, how do we get to all these benefits? And everything that we've talked about, and Bertrand mentioned COVID, the fact is that there's just not enough people to go around. You can't just throw people at this problem anymore. And people are very mobile in terms of, I can make more over here down the street, so I'm going to move, and there's a lot of turnover. So the whole point is by being able to offer what we would consider a more forward-thinking type of a solution with technology, people are going to stay and hopefully make more money if that's how they're remunerated. But the whole point is, this is a technology that operations managers can really use to eliminate errors. Also, lots of quick benefits. It's flexible, scalable, and it makes the employee safer, right? They're keeping their eyes on what they're doing instead of having to look down or look at a pick ticket or looking at, something else. Yes, somebody else? So workflow automation, the whole point is to utilize voice, not just for text to speech, not just to direct you what to do, but actually use speech to text so that the device can do multiple things simultaneously. And that is what voice automation really does. And our capability is extremely unique in that respect, in terms of being able to take over the device and utilize different types of capabilities that the device can utilize. The solution itself is completely device-based. Like it says, there's no server, there's no training, there's no middleware. So it is reasonably WMS agnostic. There are a few outlying WMSs that still use client server technology that we can't utilize, but those are 1% of the WMSs out there. We have customers that have homegrown WMSs. We have customers that have standard WMSs, and we have a lot of success connecting to all of them. When AccuSpeech talks about modern voice, we talk about device-based continuous speech recognition. We have installations all around the world in multiple languages. We support multiple languages on a single device, so users can go back and forth from Spanish to English, English to Spanish. And everything we do is deployed on the mobile device. Again, this becomes extremely attractive for folks who want to try it for the first time, who want to roll it out to maybe 1 or 2 users. And that's generally what we do during the user acceptance testing phase. So there is no single point of failure. So if something were to happen, it just happens to one device. It doesn't happen to everyone. That is a pretty significant benefit that we get more and more people telling us how important that is to them. So we saw this slide again. The productivity, the accuracy. We work really, really hard on trying to layer the automation into the existing environment so that you're utilizing the process and the workflow that you're already familiar with. We're just going to speed it up. And this is really kind of where the magic happens. So if people are using, let's say Zebra devices for data collection, they have barcode scanning, they're already pushing the application out to the device, say with an Avanti or a Stay-Link terminal emulator or whatever, with the Zebra enterprise browser, and they have a process that they go through. The whole idea is to take that 25-step process and make it a 10-step process. This way, if you were to say, and we have some really very, very impressive demonstrations that show, for instance, if you're in a case picking implementation and you're going along picking cases, and all of a sudden you get to somewhere in the warehouse and there's damage. And so instead of having to back out to the main menu, go to the damage screen, scan all the barcode scans for where you are, scan the barcode scans for the bin you're, for the product set, tell them how many there is, then go back. Now you can just be right at that place and say damage 5 cases. And when you say it, all the button pushes, all the data gets collected. We've saved the barcode scan. It all gets put in automatically in the background. The user doesn't even have to see it. And then he or she just continues to pick and do what they're doing. So those types of automation for workflows are what really makes device-based, like the AccuSpeech product, much, much different than traditional just voice picking. These automated workflows can be found anywhere, like say cycle count, shipping, receiving. We've automated just about everything there is in the warehouse in terms of an application on a mobile device. So once we do that, and we start to see all the different areas in a particular warehouse that has workflow capability for automation, that's when the ROI calculator really starts to show value. Because then all of a sudden you say, look, if I'm going to save 90 seconds every time there's damage, and that happens so many times a day to so many users, and I can extrapolate that over a year, that becomes significant. And this is where we really, our product really shines in areas like this. Another thing that we try to get folks to understand is a multimodal product. So we are designed to work on barcode scanners and readers and tablets. And so whatever that device can do, if it can scan, if it can utilize, for instance, the Zebra HD 4000 glasses, we have complete support for those now. Any capability that it has becomes multimodal. And we can take advantage of all of it, or we don't have to take advantage of any of it. It's entirely up to the to management on the floor and how it actually is going to affect the productivity of the user.
Bob,
Any
I have
Yeah, I was
two
gonna say,
questions for you.
Okay. Usually this slide evokes some questions. Go ahead.
First one, can you redesign the workflows without having to do any modifications on WMS or ERP applications?
Absolutely. That's again, fantastic question. So what we do is all on the device. So if we're integrated with, for instance, the Avanti Velocity product or the StayLink product, everything that we do, all the button pushes that we do, all the workflows that we can kind of bend is all done in that particular platform on that device. So you don't ever have to touch the code on the back. Everything we do basically is in the browser or the terminal emulator, or even if it's a thick client implementation, it's all done in that window. So we basically say, okay, once we hear this utterance, push this button, take that last barcode scan, pop it into this field, do this, hit return, go back, then come back to the screen. That's all done locally. Nothing has to be done to the back end code. So that's a good question. But yeah, that's one of the reasons, again, why device-based voice, is very, very powerful, because it all happens real time right there.
All right. And the second question goes, does a voice picking solution take lots of bandwidth on the wireless infrastructure?
Actually, the more traditional systems do. For instance, Vocalect, I know they kind of got in trouble because they were sending a lot of open text over the network, and they would go back and forth on the network, sending and receiving data. We don't change any amount of data that goes over the network. So we turn it into a 1 and 0, just like the device turned it into a 1 and 0 before voice. Again, it's a multimodal implementation, so the amount of data remains exactly the same. It doesn't change. There is no negative effect on the network. Now, I will say this, that when you use voice, and it is very fast, if there are dark spots in the warehouse, if there's places where the network falls, we find them, because by being able to utilize voice and have it be a transactional on the device, but the information does go over the network, to the WMS. When you're using a standard type of interface without voice, and you're just putting in the information and you're looking at it and you're scanning, that takes more time than just automatically saying voice and having it happen. So if there is, some dead spots in the warehouse, we'll find them. And that actually helps our customers, because then they know exactly where to kind of tweak up the head ends of their networks and the Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff. So
one more, it just came in. So
Sure.
I'm not sure if this is specific enough for you, Bob, but the person asked, can we do the development?
Oh, absolutely. That's the whole point. All of our customers and our resellers, there's two pieces of software to the, I don't know if that's here. Okay, so if we take a look at, there's two pieces of software to the AccuSpeech solution. The one piece is the runtime license that sits on the device. The other one is the studio. The studio is what actually builds the voice automated workflows. So once you build the workflow in our studio, two small files get linked to get loaded onto the device, a small XML file and a small VBIN file. And they're very small, but you can take those and load it, and you can do additional applications and load it. We have customers that do their own first level of support. And the whole point is to make folks more in charge of their own destiny in terms of what applications they do. And so when we do an implementation, we will go for a week on site and do what we call mapping and matching. We look at the workflow, we look at how they're picking, we look at how they're doing it. Then we build the project with automation in it, as we've seen, for the week that we spent there. Then we do a week on site again of what I call user acceptance testing. Now, that's where we can give 1 to 5 users the voice enabled implementation. They go out for a couple hours and come back and go, okay, Bob, I need this to be faster. I'd really like to be able to do this. Can I hear this error message? And while they're like having a coffee break or going to lunch, we can open up that project, make those changes, recompile those little files, send them to those devices and go, here, try this. So after a week of that, it is fully optimized for what the workflow is in that warehouse, for those people. And that's a tool set that anyone can use. It takes about a half a day to learn how to use it. It's not difficult. Most of the folks who learn it are usually network support. It is not particularly sophisticated. And folks can go and add those services and values to their customers. And sometimes customers even support themselves. And that's the way we like it. Teaching somebody how to fish. That's the way it's supposed to be. So again, here we have, we talked about being agnostic. We support the old CE operating system. We support iOS now. We support, of course, Android. And we have customers using all different kinds of WMSs all over the world. So it's a very flexible technology. So this is what it looks like. You have these, whatever the user is wearing, scannables and wearables, and it could be on any of these mobile devices. And then it just goes to the network to the WMS and updates. There's no server, no other software. Everything that we have that we're responsible for runs on the device, except for if there is a studio, a toolkit, then it sits on a PC somewhere. But it doesn't have anything to do with the actual functionality of this particular slide. So a little bit about legacy solutions. They're primarily just for voice directed picking. It's primarily speaking to you, text to speech. It's not particularly difficult. It doesn't really do anything and from an automation perspective. The most popular one, Vocalect, of course, doesn't even really integrate with scanners. They like check digit, which takes a lot longer. One of the great things, about us, again, being multimodal, but also being able to voice enable error messages, actually hearing, hey, you picked one too many, you scanned one too many times, or that makes a big difference for accuracy. So the biggest surprise for people who have been familiar with voice directed picking in the past just can't believe that it only takes 4 to 5 weeks to deploy, and that's all it takes. And it's fully optimized because of the testing that we do on site with users. And there's not a lot of development. It's not particularly expensive, and it is very, very flexible, and it's very agile to make changes. If you need to make changes, it's very, very quick to do that. So none of the hardware is proprietary. Everything is off the shelf, whether it's Zebra headsets or their HD 4000 or Honeywell devices, whatever the customer has, if it supports voice, we can run on it. And it makes a big, big difference because you can actually take what I would consider tablets that you can put on forklifts or mini forks, and you can voice enable those with the same project that you can put on a wearable, or same project that you have on just something that you have in a pouch. It all runs the same way. You can support different types. So customers get to choose which hardware is the best for the people that are doing the particular jobs and have voice on it. So it's there's a lot of benefits to user-independent device-based voice solutions than what I would consider the traditional server-based just voice picking, voice-directed picking. Again, we talked a little bit about, we take a lot of pride in ROI. We really try to dig into how they're doing it now, what the costs are, and what the cost would be to upgrade if they need new hardware, if they want glasses, headsets, software, the integration costs, and we try to get them as best an ROI number as possible. One of the big pushbacks we get from folks who have been familiar with traditional voice directed server picking is that the maintenance costs ongoing are very high. And then 3 or 4 years down the road, it's like you have to refresh everything. And it never seems to get to a point where the ROI is particularly attractive. With device-based voice, since you're eliminating a lot of that, and it's very easy to voice enable different types of implementations, we work really hard to have every single ROI be less than 12 months. And in some instances, if they already have hardware on site that we can use, it's always less than 10, because there's that big investment in hardware doesn't have to occur because they already have it. But we can take into consideration just about every aspect of what an implementation is going to be and give a real ROI.
Great. Following this slide, I have a question about
Sure.
proof of concept. So the question is it easy to create POC with a simple transaction to estimate
is.
ROI?
And that's, again, terrific question. So one of the things that helped us really break out of the doldrums of sounding like everybody else, we really wanted to prove to people. So we started to come up with this on-site POC where we would find out exactly what they had. Maybe they have a Manhattan system that ran on back then Wavelink or Avanti, Staylink, whatever. And they would send us for 2, 3, 4 screens and show us what we call the happy path, right? So the easiest way to pick something, everything goes right. This is what it looks like. And so we would come on site for a day or two. We would voice enable it on their network, on their application, and show them. And then also show them the capability of what automation potentially could do in other areas. And once people start to understand that not only is it really device-based, but it could be customized for what they want to do, our closure rate was at 92%. And so now we do on-site proof of concepts every month. We just make sure that the people are really serious about the project. Ordinarily, what we do is we ask them to reimburse us the travel expenses, just so that they have a little skin in the game. But other than that, we send one of our implementation engineers on site, and we have documentation that says, have this ready. We need to be able to connect to the network. It's very specific, and we work with them beforehand to make sure that when we get there, everything is completely predetermined in terms of success. And we build it, we show them, they show it to different people, and it's an extremely exciting way to show the capabilities of device-based voice automation with AccuSpeech. Really good question. And in fact, what happens is this slide becomes relevant, because once they see that it can be any application, they will come back at you and say, gosh, we have this issue in shipping. We have, the cartons come off, there's 4 or 5 people, and there's 3 bins. One's a local carrier, one's UPS, and one's FedEx. And they scan it, they look at the scanner, and they see it, and 12% go in the wrong bin. You put a headset on that person. There's a real application we did, by the way. We put a headset on that person. When they scan it 3 times, UPS, 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 and the errors went down to 0. So that one little thing had such a big impact in that warehouse. And then the folks who are really in tune with the workflows and what's going on can start to say, gosh, we could use it here. We could use it for cycle count, or we could do cycle count at the same time that we're picking, because yes, and all that stuff starts to work, and people really start to realize, all the capabilities. Plus, outside the 4 walls too, we're really starting to get a lot of customers outside the 4 walls. Mobile inspection, maintenance, and repair. as long as everything's on the mobile device, we can use that for data collection too. And we're about to start 2 very large implementations for maintenance and repair, utilizing the AccuSpeech technology, and both, in fact, are on iOS platforms. So some of our customers. Questions, even though we've already had some. If there's any others, I'm happy to answer them.
Bob, did you want to show your ROI spreadsheet?
Oh,
Or do you have it handy, or?
yeah, I could do it. Hang on a second. You're gonna ask me to. Let me get rid of this. Let me stop this. Okay. Give me a second.
Iris, any other question on your side?
Not for now.
All right, just give me a sec. Let me find it. Here we go. Oh, it's interesting. Okay, here we go. Come on. There it is. Hold on. Put it here. This. Okay, let me share my screen again. All right. Can you see it?
We can see you for now. It's coming. Okay, we can see
right.
it.
Excellent. So what we try to do is we try to, this calculator has come after years of working with different customers and trying to take the data that they care about, and we've changed it over the years, but this is what we've kind of settled on that seems to resonate with users. So we talk about the number of users, and when they really don't know, we have assumptions and comments, but we are, I have to say, extremely impressed with the metrics that most of the customers have in terms of how they do their business. So we take a look at pick lines per day, labor hours per day, how many people, burden labor, cost of labor, which it's amazing how much people have that statistic. Error rates. So we take a look at where they are currently, and then we talk about how do we drive savings for error reduction, for accuracy, and what those savings will look like. And then you can put different numbers in. So for instance, if I wanted to go 90% here, I could put a 9 in and the numbers would change, and you can see different things. So ordinarily, like for instance here, productivity, we start at 15%, but that is an extremely conservative number. We've seen productivity increases as high as 42%. And sometimes in some instances, depending on the workflow, even higher. So when we come into this, we really try to figure out where this could be, and we can be typically conservative. But then when you look at the investment, we take a look at the runtime, we take a look at what potentially the hardware costs might be, ring scanners, mobile devices, headsets, and now of course we have the smart glasses from Zebra. So what we really try to do is look at voice software and mobile devices. So, we give a tool to the customers, especially the guys in operations who have to go to their CEO or their EVPs and say, if we can spend this is the potentially what could be dropping to the bottom line in 10 months. So it's a tool that a lot of folks like to use, that we share with our customers and our resellers, that they can utilize for a lot of the opportunities that they're seeing. So. All right.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Iris, any other question?
I'm waiting, and I think you did such a good job. You answered everything.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I'm glad. And again, I think that with the entire market talking about robotics and automation, the fact is there's lots of ways to automate a warehouse. Lots of different things that people can use that are much more cost effective than spending hundreds of millions of dollars on robots. And talking to customers who have implemented robots, there are some instances where they're terrific, and then there are other instances where they just don't make sense. They don't scale. They're not particularly fast. They don't. It's not like being able to automate people and use their creativity and continually to hone the workflow process by getting good input. So there is definitely more than ever a place in logistics and warehouse for voice automation. And it's not just about voice directed picking and proprietary headsets and one thing. It's about really understanding how you can exploit the technology as an automation strategy to utilize throughout your warehouse. So people are starting to figure it out, and it's becoming extremely popular, and we're obviously very pleased about that. So.
Thank you, Bob.
pleasure.
Benoit, I think unless there is other questions, I think it will conclude the presentation. And thank you all for your participation.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, you too. And it's time to end this event. Thanks, Fidelio, for organizing it. And I'll let you conclude this conference and this event, guys.
So thank you all, and hope to be part of the next conference next year. And we'll find another interesting subject to improve the supply chain efficiency. Thank you.
Best of luck.